This is The Good Pod Guide, a podcast where I, Lauren Windle, journalist and podcast mega fan, introduce you to new podcasts you won't want to miss, as well as reminding you about some big name fan favourites. So I've said it before and I will say it again, I do not like scary movies. I don't like anything even vaguely horror related because I get scared and I don't like to be scared. And it hits hardest when I'm lying in bed and then I get in my head about it and I'm like, oh, you probably need to pee. And then I'm like, I definitely already went and don't need to. And then I get locked in this battle, like, are you going to go? Are you not? And it's so distracting that there's no way I'm going to sleep. So I know I have to go to the bathroom in order to get it out of my head. So then I'll do this like mad dash in the dark, absolutely terrified. And then I'll come back really fast and dive in bed with both feet just so that no monster can like swipe under my bed and get me. And I have to say, all of that stress is not worth it just to watch like The Craft one evening. So I never bothered. With all of that said, it's clear that I've really taken one for the team by listening to today's podcast, which is Last Podcast on the Left. This is a weekly podcast exploring the horrors of the world, both real and imagined. It's hosted by actor/comedians Ben Kissel and Henry Zabrowski. But the heavy lifting of the research is done by producer Marcus Parks. All three of them are great mates. Pre-podcast, they've got this hilarious bantery vibe going between them. They do feature topics with a news hook from time to time. For example, like in 2015, there was a huge news story where they uncovered a load of kidnappings by a guy in Cleveland who also had a sex dungeon. So they, of course, took the opportunity to dedicate an episode to sex dungeons. We at The Good Pod Guide really liked, it's not accurate. We were interested by the episode, The Best of Cannibalism, where they said that Andrei Romanov Chikatilo, which I've almost certainly mispronounced, was so good at killing that he was able to stab someone in a certain place and he knew exactly where the blood would spurt, which is really gross and gory and gruesome. And I'm sorry that I've shared that with you, but that is kind of the content of this podcast. In the same episode, they explained how serial killer Robert Pickton ground up human meat on a pig farm in Vancouver, but it got mixed up with the sausage meat and was sold to local businesses over many months. Can you imagine? The quote I've got down here is, even though the detectives knew there had been human meat contaminated in the sausages, they didn't release a public health statement for another 2 years. So for the aforementioned reasons, I've never watched horror films, but they do litter in a lot of cult horror film references. And I get that if you're into that sort of thing, that's pretty cool. There are more than 500 episodes and they range in length massively from 40 minutes to all the way up to 220. It's also a Spotify exclusive, so you'll only be able to find it on there. The banter on this one is not for me. It's super sweary, vulgar, and a bit gross, and they all talk over each other, and it sounds a bit messy and hurts my head. It's like going to the pub but turning up 4 hours too late, so everyone's already like too drunk to have sensible conversation. So you probably weren't going to do this anyway, given the subject matter, but definitely don't listen to this with kids around. That is a hard no. It's not as flat as some of the other comedy/crime podcasts we've listened to, but if I'm honest, I'm still yet to find a banter crime podcast that I feel really drawn in by. And that is not for lack of trying. In the next episode, I am unnecessarily harsh about the store Bowden's, and I already feel a bit guilty about it. I also review podcast Answer Me This. For more info on the Good Pod Guide, check out the show notes. Also, like, subscribe, and leave a positive review to help us beat that evil algorithm.